Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about the new movie, The Bikeriders. If you end up enjoying this video, please consider liking and subscribing. That way I don't have to join a biker gang and have my mom constantly worrying about me. The synopsis is as follows. Over the course of a decade, a Midwestern motorcycle club evolves from a gathering place for local outsiders to a sinister gang threatening the original group's way of life. So without further ado, let's get into the 6 things that make a movie great. 1. The plot. I went into this film thinking that it was based on the true story or based on the book that's based on the true story. But then I found out that actually all of the plot of this movie is fictional. And that made me sad because in all honesty, this movie is long and boring. If it was based on the true story, I was like, oh great, this is a snapshot of this time period. That's interesting enough for me. I can hang on to that. But really, this is a fictional work from the director who couldn't make a story like this interesting. You have Danny, the interviewer, interviewing Kathy and then it jumping around a timeline from when she's with the biker gang and married to Benny to the fallout after that and all over this timeline at different points, and it ends up just coming across really choppy and anticlimactic, which is a huge bummer because there's so much that you could do with a story like this, especially if you're making it fictional. And I just think they did a really poor job because at the end of the day, this is a mostly fictional story with nothing really interesting to show for it, which makes no sense considering the star power behind this film. So unfortunately for me, I have to give plot a thumbs down. 2 is family friendliness. The Bikeriders is rated R. There's quite a bit of profanity throughout the whole film, some moments of violence including a couple pretty gross ones, something sexual that popped up on screen for about 1 second, and a disturbing scene of almost rape. Collectively, these things are not family friendly and neither is this film. So for me, family friendliness gets a thumbs down. 3 is acting and script. Like I mentioned, the star power behind this movie is incredible. Austin Butler, Jodie Comer, Tom Hardy, Michael Shannon, Norman Reedus, and the list goes on. But the main character in this movie is Kathy, played by Jodie Comer. I also went into this movie thinking Austin Butler was going to be the main character, but it really felt like we didn't see much of him in this film. In fact, I think you see more of Tom Hardy than you do Austin Butler in this movie. But with that being said, I think the acting performances are fine. Jodie Comer did an excellent job, and I think hers was the best performance of the film. Now, sources say that 70% of the dialogue in this movie did come from the book, and I will say that the dialogue was probably the most fun part of the movie. There were a couple moments where I chuckled, and a few moments of quick-witted humor or comments that made this movie fun to watch at times. But with a really boring fictional plot, the script did all it could to make this movie more interesting, but I don't think it could quite pull it off. So for me, acting and script get a thumbs up. 4 is character development. Though I went into this movie thinking that Austin Butler was the main character and he wasn't, and it ended up being Jodie Comer, you'd think that she would have gotten the most character development. No. In my opinion, Tom Hardy's character, Johnny, got the most character development out of anyone. Johnny is the one who decides one day that he wants to start this biker gang in order to be a part of something and have something where a group of people can come together and take care of one another and ride together. And the journey he goes on through this film and where he ends up at the end of it give him the most character development out of anyone in the film. You're able to identify with Kathy and the emotions that she's feeling, but there's not a ton of character development there. And Benny, you feel like you don't know at all, which is really a shame. Oh, the potential of what this movie could have been. Character development gets a thumbs down. 5 is visuals and CGI. There is not much of anything to write home about here. No good or bad. If there is any CGI in this film, you don't notice it. There are a couple fight scenes in this movie, and visually they're entertaining with a couple disgusting moments, but I think those actually played out pretty well. Though there wasn't a ton going on in this area, I still think it netted positive. So for me, visuals and CGI get a thumbs up. And 6 is rewatchability. The Bikeriders is 1 hour and 56 minutes long, and after about the first quarter of this movie, things really slow down and start to get boring and drag this film out quite a bit. Just to know that the majority of this film is fictional makes me wonder how a film like this could have that much runtime with not that interesting of a plot. There is so much that you can do in 2 hours with something like this, and the director just didn't do a whole lot. And so you walk away from this film bored with its very anticlimactic ending. For me, rewatchability gets a thumbs down. With all these areas considered, I have to give The Bikeriders a 6 out of 10. This movie had a couple funny moments, some good acting performances, some interesting dialogue, and it takes place during a time in history that was very interesting. But the plot, the driving force behind this movie was extremely dull, boring, and anticlimactic. And it's just proof that there can be so much going for a film, but if there's not a good story behind it that can engage its audience well, that even a film like that cannot do very well. And I think the Bikeriders is an example of that. So with all that in mind, even with the star power, I do not think the Bikeriders is worth your time or money going to see in theaters. I think you'll be glad you waited to see it on streaming platforms. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen the Bikeriders, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your love and support, and I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one.